and welcome to another episode of the Corruption of Colton podcast. This is, of course, episode 47, and it's the first week of August, so lots to be excited about. School will be back in session soon, which means hopefully I can get more hours at my job since a lot of the high school students will be back to school. A lot of the college students will be back to school. Here's hoping. So hopefully I can go up from 12 hours to a little bit more. A little bit more money in my pocket to buy some new CDs and buy some new vinyl and overall just have more money for groceries as well. Anyways, before this episode begins, if you're watching on YouTube, remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If you're on podcast platforms, remember to follow the podcast and leave me a review. And as we do every week, let's get into the new album of this week. Steel by Battle Beast. Battle Beast is a European metal band known for their experimental metal playing with different sounds, such as hard rock, heavy metal, and most prominently, power metal. And honestly, I'm really excited to get into this week's album. Battle Beast is one of those bands that's more popular in Europe, but I think deserves more notoriety here in the United States. And that's mainly why I'm putting this review together, hoping that more people will check out Battle Beast and I can contribute to growing their audience here in the States. The album was released on January 27th, 2012. It is also their first album, but also their only album to feature Nitte Valo, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Nitte Valo on lead vocals, as they would change singers shortly after. But don't let the future lineup changes discourage you. Listen to this album for what it is and enjoy it. And let's get into this week's review. Starting with the first track, Enter the Metal Realm. So, correction, the opening track is actually called Enter the Metal World, but the fact that I misspoke does not change the fact that this is a great album opener. Fun fact, Nitte, the lead singer on this album, is actually female, which I did not know. I actually learned this by reading a album review online. I was reading what some people thought about this album, and the reviewer mentioned that Nitte is female, and I looked it up, and it's true, which I did not know because she doesn't sound female. Like he mentions in his review, the reviewer mentions that she doesn't have a prominent female voice. She kind of sounds like someone like Udo Dirkschneider from the band Accept, which I agree. She does sound a lot like Udo. And I think the fact that she's female but is able to make herself sound more in the vein of someone like Udo is actually really cool and shows that Nitte has a lot of vocal talent that we should be appreciating when listening to this album. And Enter the Metal World? Well, boy did we! I feel like listening to this track, you just enter the amazing world that is power metal music, which is a great genre, and I think this song is a great display of power metal, and why, if you haven't listened to power metal, you should open your heart up to it and listen to more power metal bands, because this is a great song and display of the power metal music genre. So, overall, great song and great album opener in my opinion, and props to Nitte for her vocal performance on this track and throughout this album going forward. Track 2, The Armageddon Clan, is a power metal powerhouse of a track, if you ask me. Just a perfect song to jam out to. I was jamming out to this while I was getting ready for my day. You know, I had to get dressed, brush my teeth, order some lunch. I just had Burger King, as you can see by my Burger King cup. I had a nice Sprite. But they did not give me a straw, which absolutely sucks, but at least now I have a drink while I record. But the not giving me a straw can be a rant for another day. Fast food restaurants tend to do that for some reason, but Point is, this is a great song to jam out to while you're doing stuff like ordering your food or eating your food or getting dressed for the day, brushing your teeth. I kind of jammed out to this and pretty much the most of this album while I was getting ready for my day because I knew I'd have to record at some point this afternoon because today is my day off of work and I like to use my day off to go for a walk, record, etc. And this song is just perfect for starting your day. So, good song if you ask me. Probably one of the best on this album. Armageddon Clan might be one of the best, but The Band of the Hawk is the best song on this album. It has an 80s rock style intro where it's like kind of like something reminiscent of an 80s rock track that maybe like a hair metal band would do, or like a metal band or a hard rock band from that time. But then it's like an 80s rock song with power metal baked into it, and it's honestly an absolutely beautiful combination if you ask me. It's also acoustic. I mean, power metal's awesome, but if you think power metal is awesome, acoustic power metal is even better. Just the way power metal music blends with acoustic guitar, if done right, is just an absolutely beautiful combination, and I think this is an accurate representation of just how wonderful that sounds. So I think The Band of the Hawk is, no joke, the best song on this album. I have a good time listening to it every time I listen to this track. Track 4, Justice in Metal, just has an all-around badass vibe. Let me read you some lyrics from here. He's a bad motherfucker. He's a metal man. He's got a heart of steel, not afraid to die. Tonight all warriors scream, justice and metal, justice and metal, justice and metal. Honestly, I don't really know what this song would really be about, but that doesn't really matter. The song's just awesome. It's absolutely fun to jam out to, especially just to shout out with the song, justice and metal, justice and metal. Just a really good metal song with a really good vibe. This is why I love power metal. It's melodic with unique sounds. Like, if I were to describe the sound of power metal, it has almost like these orchestral arrangements with melodic choruses and lyrics. It's honestly awesome. I love how orchestral power metal is, where heavy metal and hard rock kind of blend together and they're just kind of, guitars and bass, drums being as loud as they can be. Power metal also focuses on, like, acoustics, piano, and other like orchestral type of arrangements and instruments like accordions and other stuff. So honestly, great song, Battle Beast, and great representation of power metal, man. We then get the title track from this album, Steel, and though I don't think the verses aren't that strong, I think the chorus is absolutely awesome. We say, shake the world with metal, shake the world with steel, shake the world with heavy metal grinding the beat, shake the world with metal, shake the world with steel, steel, steel. Honestly, I think that's true. Metal music has shaked the world. I feel like it took the world by storm in the 70s with Black Sabbath. Rock shook the world too with bands like Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Van Halen, Motorhead. In the 80s, stuff like Ozzy Osbourne, Metallica, Dio, especially the big four, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, Anthrax. The 80s was like a metal resurgence where like it built upon everything that was awesome about 70s metal and just made it even better. It was like a metal renaissance and it was absolutely awesome. And I feel like Battle Beast, which Steel is kind of like a combination of hard rock and power metal, like I'd say modernized hard rock, showing that even hard rock of today, though metal is not as prominent and popular as it used to be, and the 80s was really its glory period, a great metal song can still come in the world of today. I honestly wish people my age, I'm in my early 20s. A lot of people love rap these days and pop, like Billie Eilish and all that. I honestly wish people would see how awesome metal music is today in 2024. Like, I honestly wish they would. Because metal is still awesome. It never stopped being awesome. People just stopped paying attention to it in favor of other genres and artists. But hey, this is a great song, and yes, metal did shake the world, and I think it still shakes the world. People just don't appreciate it. It certainly shaped my musical journey. I started out, no joke, it might be embarrassing. In the 2000s, I would listen to music a lot on the radio. Sort of hiccuping. Shit. But I just would listen to whatever was on the radio. I didn't really have a favorite artist. I mean, I did really like Green Day a lot, but that was about it. But in the 2010s, I went through a huge One Direction phase. Yes, a One Direction phase. You heard that right. And I was absolutely obsessed with pop. But then in 2017, I started listening to Nickelback as my first real band. And a lot of people shit on them, but I don't care. They're awesome. I saw them in concert even, and they are great live. And from there, I started listening to, like, Theory of a Dead Man and Seether and Linkin Park and all these 2000s rock bands. And then I started listening to, like, 2000s metal, Korn, Slipknot, all kinds of stuff. And from there, my brother turned me on to more 80s stuff like Iron Maiden, Metallica, Slayer, Testament, Exodus. And I discovered how much I love Megadeth. And then I got, like, Anthrax, Death Angel, Diamond Head, all kinds of other stuff. It honestly was awesome. I've told this story a few times on the podcast, but like I told it years ago. But yeah, honestly, these are some of my favorite bands these days. Is rock and metal as my favorite genre, and I got to appreciate country too. I've been on such a wild musical journey that I have grown to really appreciate the musical journey I went on. And this is a great song. The verses aren't that strong, but the choruses and all its energy save it. And honestly, the hard rock instrumentation energy saves this track. Great song. We're halfway through the album, and we're on track 6, Die Hard Warrior, which has an awesome orchestral intro, which is sort of a basic riff, but they mix some orchestrals into this basic riff and just make it absolutely awesome to listen to. And they kind of follow that pattern throughout the track a little bit. I love this. Die Hard Warrior is a awesome halfway album point. I think this signifies why Battle Beast is so awesome and why this album is so awesome. Just how they can take a riff that's so basic and just turn it into something awesome again. Make it sound like something we haven't heard before when we've heard this riff a million times. Honestly, great song. Great intro. Great lyrics on this song. Great everything. I wouldn't say Cyberspace is this album's strongest point, but I wouldn't say it's its weakest point either. I would say this track is right in the middle between I like it and I don't like it. It's okay. It's enjoyable sometimes when I put on this album and I just want to listen to the album in full, if you know what I mean. But sometimes if I'm just casually listening to Apple Music, like on my personalized station, or I just want to listen to a mix of songs, I might skip this one. There's more exciting stuff up in the queue. You know what I mean? I was afraid by the last track that this album would have a weak finish, have a really strong beginning, but then have a weak second half, like the Buckcherry album review from last week. But I don't think I have to worry about that, because Show Me How to Die kicks ass, man. Oh, excellent. It has this really eerie intro that's almost reminiscent of a horror movie. It honestly reminds me of a scene in a horror movie the sounds heard. Like, not like the scariest part of the horror movie, but like the beginning of the horror movie where it starts to get eerie and you're in for a horror movie. That's what the intro reminds me of. And it's awesome. Not to mention the epic drum fill that happens before each chorus. Like, dun, 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 dun. Just like an epic, basic but epic drum fill between the choruses and verses, or between the verses and choruses, rather. And honestly, it's absolutely awesome. And Show Me How to Die is overall just an epic power metal song. I love it. We then get Savage and Saint, which is another acoustic powerhouse. This track is fully acoustic, and I guess is the closest to what you would call a ballad on this album. And it's a pretty darn good ballad. I'm sure you remember Baby was the Buckcherry ballad from last week, and I thought it was better than the rest of the songs on the second half, but still pretty weak. But this is not a weak ballad at all. This one is awesome. This is a great Battle Beast ballad, and I come back to it all the time. If I could pick a modern ballad, in modern day metal, if I could pick one that you should check out, it would be this song from Battle Beast and Kill the Pain by Accept. And they're similar acoustic style tracks that are both really good. But I'd say the Battle Beast one is slightly better. Definitely check this out. Iron Hand is a great representation of Nette's vocal talents on this album, where before the chorus, she shrieks, "Iron Hand!" And she's able to hold the note for a good handful of seconds, and honestly, she can hold her note pretty well. She's already doing that more strained style of vocal, the more raspy style, and she's still able to hold on to that note despite the rasp. Nette is a really talented vocalist that I think deserves more respect in the metal industry. Great job, Nette. You held on to that note really well. And in regards to Iron Hand, it's a great metal song. It's a great power metal track. I like it. Victory is another one of those traditional metal songs about battle and war, and I will say the verses are kind of basic. The verses are sort of recycled, if you know what I mean. The same old type of war and battle talk that you hear in a lot of metal songs, and the chorus is kind of similar in the vein that it is kind of traditional, but it's just melodic enough that it's fun to listen to, especially in the chorus. They make the chorus catchy enough that, though recycled, though a bit of the same old song and dance in terms of subject matter, it just manages to be an awesome recycled song. And honestly, I love it. It's catchy and it even gets stuck in my head sometimes. This is one of those metal songs that actually gets stuck in my head sometimes. It was actually stuck in my head after I listened to the album. When I was getting ready for my day today, I was sort of humming this song to myself after I heard it. And I was, like I said, I was listening to this album while I was starting my day. And then, while I was eating my lunch, I was sort of humming this track. I didn't realize it would get stuck in my head and be that infectious, but it was. That earns it a point. Great song. Album closer, Stay Black, was just alright. It was an okay album closer. The opening riff was sort of a recycled riff that I think we've heard in power metal before, and potentially it's, honestly, in my opinion, even been recycled from earlier songs on this album. The instrumentation felt a little bit recycled. It felt like they needed one more song on this album, so they just threw this together. Honestly, not a fan. But for the most part, good album. I'm going to say my final thoughts. This is a great album. There's only really two tracks that I'd really call weak, and that is Stay Black. Victory has its weaknesses, though it's still pretty good. I personally give this album an 8 out of 10. If you're a power metal fan, I definitely think it's worth checking out this album. Especially check out Nette as a vocalist. She's a really good, powerful, talented vocalist in the European metal world. If you liked this episode, remember to follow the podcast on all podcast platforms and leave a review. If you enjoyed this YouTube video, like, comment, and subscribe, and put your thoughts below about this album. And stay tuned for more album reviews in the future. I'm not going anywhere. I had a big problem where I think for like almost half a year, I went radio silent. I just got busy, but I don't plan to stop the album reviews or go on pause anytime soon. I'm here for life, or at least until podcast platforms just shut down and I'm not allowed to talk about music anymore. But until then, I'm here, and I'm here to stay.